Been a minute since we've had a chance to talk to our next guest, who joins us now on the River Islands guest line. I do believe he was out here in the Bay Area taking part in All-Star Weekend just recently, back home, tucked in and ready to chat it up, none other than FS1's Chris Broussard here on Willard and Dibs. Hey, Chris, what's going on, man?
What's up, Mark? How you doing, man? It's good to be on with you guys.
It is wonderful to have you. And I just actually opened up Instagram during our last commercial break, because that's what we do in 2025. When you have a minute, you open up social media, and there you were. There you were saying KD made a mistake. He should have gone to Golden State. Please explain.
Yeah, he absolutely made a mistake. The talk around, at least I've heard from several people around the league, that the feeling is that he didn't go there because of Draymond, and they rekindled their friendship. But it's just that, he didn't particularly like playing with Draymond. Draymond runs his mouth a lot. He directs traffic a lot. It can be aggravating to some players. But that's what the feeling is, at least among some people around the league. But the bottom line, whether it's that, whether it's, Steve Kerr alluded to all the problems he had with people, when he first went to Golden State, and even not getting the credit, for winning the 2 championships because people thought he hopped on the bandwagon. The bottom line is, to me, this time is completely different. Like, had he gone back this time, I think he would have been viewed, if he would have helped them win a championship or even get close, I think he would have been viewed more as a savior. Like, the Warriors are not the 73-win Warriors anymore. They'll be fortunate to get in the official playoffs. I mean, they'll probably make the play-in, but they'll be fortunate to actually get in the final 8. And if he were there and he helped them get close to a championship, I think he would have got a ton of credit. And had he led them to a championship, I think it would have been viewed as his best championship ever. Whereas staying in Phoenix, he is like, he's like off the radar. He's playing great individually. They'll be lucky to make the play-in, right? They're in 11th spot right now. And so I just think that he had the choice of staying in Phoenix and basically being in basketball Siberia for the rest of the season, or making a run with the Warriors that really would have, put him in the mix of the NBA championship race. And he chose, the former, which I thought was a huge mistake.
Is it difficult to go home again, though, Chris, in that same spot? Because I know that the way you laid it out is accurate, and I see it that way, but a lot of fans, I think, especially outside our market, would look at it as him chasing a championship again. If you're KD, what can he actually do to kind of exonerate his own legacy?
Well, that's a great question, because I think, look, there's a lot of talk. We know Dallas went after Kevin Durant before the trade deadline, as the Warriors were going after him too. And there's some talk, I would imagine they'll try to do the same thing this offseason. And even if they got Kevin Durant and then they had him and Kyrie and Anthony Davis, and they were able to win a championship, there would be those people who would say, well, that's a stacked team. Of course he did it with them. He's always going to get some criticism. I think the only way he would have probably alleviated any criticism at all would be had he had more success in Brooklyn or even Phoenix. Had he been able to win there, I think people would have been like, okay, this guy can win anywhere. He can lead a team. But I just think people understand now, as great as Kevin Durant is, and he's a top 20 player all time, he is not like a leader and that's going to lead a team to a championship. So I think that will, when you look at the other 2 top players of this generation, being Steph and LeBron, they each can lead teams and have led teams to championships. And KD is just not that same type of personality. And that's probably why he gets some of the grief he gets. And I don't know that any type of championship will fully 100% put away the criticism. But I do think more people would have valued the championship if he were to go to Golden State and win it than they valued his first two.
Chris Broussard, FS1, always analyzing hoops with us here, Willard and Dibs, 95-7 the game. Chris, I wonder what your prediction would be Golden State-wise. Like, I know Durant has spoken about, like, don't want to leave Phoenix, at least not now. And I'm not specifically pointing to Durant, but they made their big move. Jimmy Butler's here. He's got the extension, but they also trumpeted the idea that they still have flexibility. Do you believe the core of this roster is what it is and will stay that way for the next 2 years, or do you see more big moves coming?
Well, look, they're not a championship team yet. The Jimmy Butler move was great. I think Jimmy definitely helps them. He fits in with Draymond and Steph. And you're going to get, he got his contract extension, so you should get the best of Jimmy Butler for the next, 2 years or so. But they're not a championship team yet. I think they, at best, they make a nice playoff run, maybe get to the second round. But they should keep building, and I think they will because they know, look, let's try to win as many titles as we can with Steph. So I think they need to, in the offseason, they should go after Kevin Durant again. And if indeed what a lot of people are saying is true, that Draymond was the issue, I would shop Draymond if I'm the Warriors. If I was able to get Kevin Durant by moving Draymond Green, I would do that. And you need Draymond's spirit and his defense. They need that because it's a great mix with Steph. But Jimmy Butler could fill that void. So if you had Jimmy Butler, Steph, and KD, I do think that's a team capable of winning a championship. And so I would certainly continue to pursue KD if I'm the Warriors. But outside of that, obviously they need to get a big and everybody like Dallas is going to be looking to make moves this offseason. The Lakers are going to be looking to make moves. Milwaukee, if they don't, have a great postseason run, they're going to be likely making moves. Minnesota's going to, everybody's going to be looking to make moves this offseason, and the Warriors should be right there ready to do what they can with anybody.
Well, they got Kuminga to think about, but you mentioned the spirit of Draymond Green, and I know you heard his comments when he talked about how they will win the championship this year. When you hear Draymond saying that, is that just athletic hubris, or do you really think that he believes that they actually have a live shot?
I do think he believes. I think Draymond is honest, and we saw that on the NBA All-Star broadcast. He's going to speak his mind, whatever the cost. And so I do think he believes it. I don't believe it, and I don't think many other people believe it. I want that from one of my leaders. Steph may believe it as well. They should feel that way, right? You want them to feel that way. And I will say this. Look, when you look at what Jimmy Butler has, when he was at his best, and he led Miami to 2 NBA, finals appearances, he wasn't supposed to do that. Those teams were not that great. He wasn't supposed to beat that Boston team that eventually won a championship, but he did, the year before that. And so playoff Jimmy is real. You will get the best of Jimmy Butler, assuming he's healthy, in the playoffs. So I get Draymond's excitement, and I like it, again, but I just don't think this is a championship roster at the end of the day.
Chris, which phrase do you think best describes Jonathan Kuminga? Future All-Star, a very good player, or future trade chip?
I would say a future trade chip. And I think all of those are mixed in. He is a very good player. He might make an all-star team or two in the future. But if the goal is to win now, and it is, then he's going to likely have to be in a deal. It's just as simple as that. And you hate to give him up because he does have great potential. But, if you, again, I've talked about KD or whoever they may be able to get to help them get to the next level, he may very well need to be a part of it. Now, look, if they make a really nice run that surprises us and go deep into the second round, maybe get beaten 6 or 7 games, or even get to the conference finals, and the feeling is that they're not as far away as we thought, then maybe they can get a collection of bigs, kind of like Dallas had before, they got Anthony Davis, Daniel Gafford, and Derek Lively, role-playing bigs who aren't stars, and maybe you can get something like that without having to give up a Kuminga. But right now, the feeling is I think they're a little further away, and they'll probably need a little higher caliber player. So Kuminga might have to be a casualty. But, I would imagine that their view is, let's see how this thing goes, and then we'll be ready to make whatever moves we have to make in the offseason.
And it looks like they aren't done making moves come the offseason. They will try to shore this up even more. And I wonder, Chris, what you think about Steph Curry as a team's best player. Can he still be good enough for long enough from April to June to carry a team to an NBA championship?
Well, he's not quite what he used to be, but I do think he can still be the best player on the team. Like, I think he's the best player on the team now. And you need more around him, like he, Clay, and Draymond. I don't think he could do that at this, stage of his career. But, with Butler, like I said, KD, I keep bringing him up, but I just think you need higher caliber players around Steph now to really be able to, win a championship. And look, let's be quite honest. Not many people saw them winning it in 2022.
Yeah.
So maybe he can go ahead and, surprise us. But they clearly need upgrades. And again, I know what Draymond said, but that would be a shocker. That would be as shocking as the Luka Doncic trade if the Warriors even got to the finals, let alone won it.
So, Chris, let me ask it, though, this way. Because you're saying Draymond believes it, you don't believe it, most people don't believe it. I'm generally with you, at least until we see a whole lot more. But is it fair?
Right.
Is it fair to say that right now, suddenly, the Western Conference is vulnerable? Houston is losing a bunch of games. I'm not sure what to make of the Lakers start with Luka. It's been wobbly.
Right.
Anthony Davis is hurt. De'Aaron Fox is gone. Wemby's out, and the Suns are a mess. Is this suddenly more gettable than it was 3 weeks ago?
Well, among the teams you mentioned, yes. The Warriors could play with those teams. But I think the top 2 teams in the West are Oklahoma City and Denver. And if I had to pick one, I would pick Denver. And, they're playing one of the hottest team in the league right now. They've won 8 straight. Jamal Murray, as he tends to do, he started slow, and that was why they struggled early. But now he's gotten back into midseason form, and they're rolling. And I think, their role players, their bench guys, are settling more into their roles. And Jokic is having just another terrific season. And so they would be my pick. Oh, now look, OKC, as good as they are young. They would be the youngest team ever to win the NBA championship if they were to do so. And I think that's a problem. Like, I don't know if last year they, took their lumps and got some postseason experience, but I don't know if that's quite enough for them to go get out of the West this year. Memphis, I question their leadership as far among players, their maturity. So they're not, immovable. And then again, Houston, I just think is way too young. As good a regular season as they've had, I don't think they're, getting out of the West. And every team you mentioned has its warts. So I think outside of Denver and then second I go OKC, yeah, the Warriors might be able to play with those teams. The problem is, can they get through the top 2 that I mentioned? And obviously, both of those teams' advantage over the Warriors will be inside, right? The size, Holmgren and Hardenstein in OKC, and of course Jokic and maybe even Aaron Gordon as far as Denver. So that, to me, if the Warriors do make a great run in the postseason and don't get to the finals, the order of business would be to go get some size, because I think that's probably their biggest weakness at this point.
Yeah, and it's been their biggest weakness for this entire run, yet they got 4 titles out of it. So I do think they're kind of chasing the old paradigm where, you play Draymond at the 5 and you could get away with it when he was a little bit younger. And Chris, I just want to ask your thoughts about the All-Star weekend in totality, and in particular, the format that we saw with this 4-game All-Star elimination tournament. What did you think of the tweaks the league made this weekend?
Well, I wasn't that fond of the format because of the breaks, right? There are 2 main reasons I didn't like the format. One, the breaks in between games were just way too long. And even in the championship game, it was a 20-minute break, And from what I'm told, because I was there for All-Star Saturday, I left before the game and watched it at home. But people in the arena, it was really problematic. And it was just too long. And so that was a problem. But also, there wasn't a lot of basketball, right?
Right.
It was a 3-hour production, and you got 30 minutes of basketball. And for an All-Star, if you were on the team that lost the first game, like you may have played 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it was. And so you just didn't get to see a lot of basketball. What I do give the league credit, though. The players played hard. And I'm not saying they gave a playoff performance, but they did play much harder than they had in the past All-Star games. And that was great. Like, they tried to win. There was defense played. There was resistance. Like, that was good, and that was a plus. It is an absolute shame that the players couldn't play like that in a regular game, but I thought it was a step in the right direction. So, look, people are throwing out the idea of an international versus American, All-Star game. I love that. I definitely think the international guys would come to play. I generally feel like a Jokic, a Giannis, when they're in the All-Star game, they want to play. And I feel like in the past few years, they've been disheartened because they come to give a regular game effort and no one else is. And they kind of, then they fall in place with everybody else. But because the international guys would probably play hard, I think that would make the Americans play hard because they wouldn't want to get embarrassed, on the national scene like that. So that, to me, is something that Adam Silver needs to explore. And the way I would do it is I would keep the voting just as it is, right? So you just vote for All-Stars, how we do now, because there's a history there, and it's important. Like, All-Star games, the amount that you make play a part in Hall of Fame inductions and how we view a player historically. So I don't want to change that. But if you don't, let's say you had like 8 international guys of the 24, I think you just add a few more to fill out the team. They wouldn't be technically All-Stars, but they could play in the game. And I do it like that. You also could just add, you make it 30 All-Stars, 15 in each conference versus 12, which makes sense because you have 30 teams. And that way you probably end up getting at least 10 or to 12 international players, and that'll probably grow over the years too. So I think that would be, it could be done, and I would love to see it. I just hope we as the Americans wouldn't get blown away.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the hesitations. Hey, man,
yes.
Great to have you on the show, man. Thank you so much for doing it.
Mark, anytime you need me, sometimes the schedules don't match, but anytime you need me, reach out.
We always will. Thank you, brother.
All right, guys. See it.
There he goes.
Broussard.
Chris Broussard, FS1.
Love him.
Yeah.